Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, William Holditch, who's here to share with us his new book, Strategic Planning for the Golden Years, an advanced workbook for organizing key personal, medical, and financial information. So are you prepared for when life takes an unexpected turn? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. William Holditch is a Texas native who earned his BS in Farm and Ranch Management from Texas A&M and an executive MBA from Baylor. He helped grow his family's event rental business from under $1 million to $11 million in annual revenue before its sale in 2017, establishing himself as an industry expert. Afterwards, he held executive roles in the special events industry until the COVID-19 pandemic, when he transitioned to serving as a firefighter EMT. He later became a college professor and continues his emergency service work in Central Illinois. So welcome to the show, William Holditch.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, it's such an honor to have you here. What even inspired you to write this book?
Well, so there was a lot of things that inspired me, but one of the things that really kind of brought it all home for me with the pandemic, I lost my job. And so I went to work for the fire department there in Virginia. And we were bringing people into the hospital who were suffering from COVID and dying. And we would go into their apartment and there would be one person there, and we would grab a purse, a wallet, a phone, and we would just take that with us to the hospital because we didn't know anything about these people. And my wife was an ICU nurse, and so they would try to figure out who this person was. Did they have an emergency contact? Did they have allergies? What was going on? And so that was a big eye-opening experience for me, just that whole experience. And then a number of years later, my father had a small heart attack. And I got on the phone with my sister and I said, "Hey, what do we know about Dad? We know he's a Vietnam vet. Does he have VA benefits? Does he have pension left over from when he worked at the power company? Does he have long-term care insurance?" And she was like, "I don't know. I don't know." And so I sat down that night and wrote out 168 pages of questions that I thought we should know about Dad, about his personal life, his personal choices in life, his medical history, and his financial history, so that if something was to happen to Dad and he was to go into a care facility and we were to become his advocates, we would know where our resources are and what we needed to do to take care of Dad.
Now, how many families get stuck not knowing any of that information because, emergencies happen. That's why they're called emergencies. I mean, everything has to stop. We pick things up and we go. So if someone is a family member and they're all of a sudden kind of thrown into this kind of role as a caretaker, how does this workbook help ease this transition for them?
Well, so the way the workbook helps is first of all, it's supposed to start that conversation with your parent on if they go into a long-term care facility, what foods do they like? What time do they want to go to bed? What foods do they not like? Those kinds of things that you may not know about your parent. And then from a financial standpoint, if anybody's ever had a family member or a loved one go into a long-term care facility, they're anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And so knowing where the financial assets are, knowing where the long-term care policy is, the health insurance policy, those things, those financial instruments that could help lessen that cost of the burden is what helps reduce the stress. The situation is stressful enough, and at some point it's just going to overwhelm you. But if you have this information, it's less likely to overwhelm you. The other part about this is it really encourages you to include your siblings. My father is remarried, so his new wife, and those kinds of people in their life, in their orbit, that are all going to be part of that support group. And so it really does. It's a fill in the blank. You sit down and have that conversation, and you just go right through it and fill in the blanks. And as you learn, the more you know, the more power you have.
Why do you think so many families are so unprepared when it comes to aging parents or end of life care?
Oh yeah, more people. If you talk to them, it's not even something on their radar. They're worried about paying the bills, their kids in school. Did they get the car taken care of this month? Or is the house payment made? They don't even think about their parents. One of a really good example is a good friend of mine. Her husband died. Um, Unfortunately, they were estranged, and so she didn't know where anything was. She almost lost her house and his house due to medical bills and all of that stuff. So it's not even necessarily the your elderly parents, it's your loved ones. It's the people in your orbit. So if you have somebody that is dealing with a chronic illness or even a terminal illness, it's these this information is important for you to have at hand.
That way we're prepared for what comes next and how to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's going to happen? So as a firefighter EMT, when you show up, you're in emergency mode. Nobody really is looking at your insurance. Nobody's looking at your whatever benefits you have. Our job is to get you stabilized and get you to the hospital, right? Once you get to the hospital and they've stabilized you, now you've got nurses and doctors and case managers who start asking you a barrage of questions. And if you get through that and you go to a long-term care facility, those case managers, nurses, and doctors are going to have more questions for you. So it's getting prepared for that situation where you're going to have to know this information and you're going to learn it in one way or the other. Either you're going to work through this workbook and be prepared, or you're going to get a battlefield promotion to advocate for your parent, and it's going to be the most horrible situation of your life.
What are some of the most common pieces of information families tend to overlook until it's too late?
The most common pieces of information, do they have a long-term care policy? Do they have a pension, Social Security, VA benefits? What benefits are there to pay the bills? Most people, like my father, has got Social Security. He's got a couple of pensions. He's got VA benefits. So if my father was to go into a long-term care facility, we could use that money and probably cover 80% of what the out of pocket would be for that facility. And then my siblings and I would have to kick in the difference. But if we didn't have any of that knowledge, we would be on the hook for the full $4,000 to $6,000 a month.
That makes such a huge difference. In what ways does this workbook help to maintain a loved one's dignity and independence while they're still planning ahead?
So the nice thing about it is it's really not designed to take over your life, right? It's designed to have it as a conversation. If your parent or your loved one wants to fill out the book but doesn't want you to have it, make sure they put it in a safe place, a drawer in the house, somewhere where you know it where it's at. A lot of elderly people are worried about giving up their independence and their kids taking over their lives, and that's not what this book is all about. This book is about when, as an adult child, when your loved one, whether it's a mom or a dad or an aunt or a grandparent, can no longer advocate for themselves. This gives you the information to help advocate for them, which in turn gives them the quality of life. Knowing what foods they do or don't like, knowing what their schedule is, knowing what they want to do, because a lot of people, when they go into a long-term care facility, they don't get to express those things. And so, as the advocate for your loved one, you're the one that's got to step up and be there and tell the nurses and tell the doctors and the case managers, Mom doesn't like quiche. She doesn't like eggs. Don't try to feed her eggs. She won't eat eggs. Feed her something else. Or Mom is a vegetarian. Don't feed her meat. She only eats vegetables. And those kinds of things that most long-term care facilities, unless you tell them, they don't know.
How would they? There's that conversation that needs to happen, especially when it comes to allergies. And I was so impressed because your book does cover different types of allergies and reactions. And I think that that's important because a lot of times we have no idea what someone's allergic to.
Exactly. My dad's allergic to penicillin. He doesn't wear a bracelet, but I know he's allergic to penicillin. That's something that you need to tell them. One of the things that the book does that was actually a late addition was brought up to me by my sister was it gets your Facebook password, your Google password, your Gmail password. It asks for your password, say to GoDaddy if you have intellectual property, that stuff that lives in the digital world. There is, while it's really funny, there is a legal power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, but there is no digital power of attorney. So if you pass away, it's hard to get your password from Facebook. It's hard to get it from GoDaddy. It's hard to get it from those places. So that is a new 2025 problem. And so that's one of the things we added to the book at the very last minute.
What a good piece because my goodness, I mean, who would know that? Who would ever
Right.
think about that?
Yeah, and some of those properties can be valuable if you have certain domains, if you have certain websites that are running and doing things. Those things are as valuable as houses sometimes.
How can families use this workbook to navigate really difficult conversations around aging and end of life?
Well, so I like to tell people, remember when you were 14 and your mom and your dad sat down and had that conversation about the birds and the bees with you? Well, you're 54, and now it's time for you to sit down and have that conversation with your parents. Mom, dad, something is going to happen eventually. I need to be prepared because I'm going to be the one that's going to take care of you. I'm going to be the one that's going to advocate for you. I've got this book. Let's sit down and work on it a little bit and work on it over a span of several months. Don't try to do it all in one day. It's 136 pages of questions. You're going to wear your parent out. Do a little bit every day. Keep that conversation rolling. The more you get into it, the more they get comfortable. So we start with the personal information because that's the least objectionable, and we end with the financial information because normally my dad is a member of the silent generation. So his parents were from the Great Depression. They're very protective of their money. They're very protective of where it's at. They're very protective of how much they have. They don't like to tell you. And so we use that as the very end because by that time, hopefully, you've built enough trust up that they see that this is actually for their benefit when something horrible happens. And obviously, none of us want anything horrible to happen, but it does every day.
Yes, none of us know our expiration date. I mean, we're walking towards that every day.
And we are. And what's really the hard part is seeing those people that are 85 years old, healthy as a horse, and they have a stroke. And they're going to live the next 10 years of their life bedridden with speech problems and movement issues and all of that kind of stuff. And unless you know that information to advocate for your parent, it's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to learn a lot about your parent in a very stressful situation.
It's tough enough as a caregiver, a family caregiver, to deal with all that. And then you're having to figure out all the financial and things that your workbook covers, which is very detailed. I was very impressed with that. How about for folks that are just wanting to plan their future and they're not caregivers? Can they use this workbook?
Well, sure. I mean, anybody can use the workbook. It's definitely a planning guide. It sits down and allows you to see that you can go through it and see. So I'm 51 years old. If I wanted to go through it and go, okay, what does this book talk about that I might need to have? One of the things it talks about is long-term care insurance. I've never thought about long-term care insurance. I'm 51 years old. I'm not 25 anymore. When I was 25, I was bulletproof. Now I'm not so much bulletproof, but I still don't think that I'm going to end up in a nursing home for a great length of time. But the healthier we are, the longer we live, the more likely we are to end up in a nursing home. Because while you're healthy, your body does start to break down. Hips break, spines go out, shoulders hurt. Unfortunately, Alzheimer's and dementia is a huge problem. Alzheimer's and dementia happened to my wife's grandfather, and unfortunately, we caught it too late. And by the time we knew what was going on, we were struggling to get him the help he needed. And it's one of those things that sneaks up on people. It's not like a stroke where one day they're standing there all nice and the next day they're on the ground. having a stroke, Alzheimer's sneaks up on you. And so those are the things you got to start thinking about and being prepared for.
I am so sorry your family went through that. That must have been just such a difficult time.
It was a difficult time, but the interesting part about it was the things we learned going through the process. So he was a Korean War vet, but he didn't have his DD 214 from his time in the service. And oh, by the way, the building, the warehouse that had all the records from the Korean War burned down in the 1980s. So we were in Austin, Texas at the time, and we were so very fortunate to have this wonderful case manager who went in and really helped us find our records and get him the services he needed. And we were able then to really be able to take care of him. So his final years of his life, while not luxurious, were comfortable.
What things would you like our readers and listeners to take away from your workbook?
I would really like them to take away the fact that at some point in their life, they're going to be the advocate for their loved one, whether it's a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, or they're supporting, like I supported my wife through her grandfather, or there's, those things. And so know that the Generation Xers have the silent generation and the baby boomers in front of us. And for the next 20 years, those people are going to go through their end of life processes. It's going to affect my generation, and we're going to have to deal with it. So please be prepared. Think about it. It's not a matter of if it's happening. It's coming. Whether you're directly affected by it or not, you're going to be in it.
So, Will, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about strategic planning for the golden years?
So I have a website, which is authorwilliamholditch.com. Now, Holditch is a little difficult to spell. It's Holditch.
Well, Will, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Hey, thank you very much. It's been great.
Well, thank you, Will. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Strategic Planning for the Golden Years. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.